Finding and using secondary sources, online resources. Once you've classified your problem and settled on the terms and keywords that define your issue, you're ready to begin your actual research. But where do you start? I don't like that color light. The light is irritating my eyes, my soul. No, that's not the one I like. It's irritating my soul. That's kind of dry. There you go. I need to read too. Okay. As we explained, the number of available sources can seem overwhelming. If you go straight to the text of the law itself, you might find it difficult to understand or too obscure or lawyerly to make much sense of it. That is why we recommend you best start using secondary sources. In Chapter 2, we discussed secondary sources, explain and interpret primary sources like statutes, cases, and regulations. So they're easier to understand. Using secondary sources can help you familiarize yourself with legal areas you're researching. Once you know the basic concepts, you'll find that the primary sources aren't challenging to grasp as they might first seem. But not all secondary sources are created equal. In this chapter, we'll discuss where to find different types of secondary sources and how to use them. Online resources. Today, it is simple to go online and use a search engine and search almost any topic. Type driving under the influence and to Google, for example, you'll get 644 million results from many different resources. You'll find government websites, lawyers, websites, and more. Below, we'll explain some ways to decide on reliable online sources and how it's to eliminate results you don't want. For instance, one way to limit your resources is use an online search engine designated for legal resources such as Google Scholar. Of course, you're looking for a general overview of material. You might want not limit yourself that way, but as you search advances, you should narrow your stuff down. Related topics. You need to figure out how to narrow your online search. Go back to Chapter 2, where we explain Boolean searching. Also recognize that search engines have formulas for making sure that you get the most relevant results first. These methods are proprietary, however, so you won't know how they work, but explains why one search engine might give you a different set of results than another. Deciding whether information is reliable. The hard part about getting secondary information online is that it can be difficult to tell how reliable it is. After all, you won't know if a lawyer who posts information on the website is a legal expert in the field or right out of law school. Here are some indicators to help you decide when to rely on online information. Does it cite primary sources? A source that provides legal citations to the actual law will be more reliable than one that does not have cites or has inaccurate cites. Most importantly, knowing where you can find the law itself makes it easier for you to verify information provided yourself. We'll discuss more on primary sources and materials, chapters 5 to 7. What is the website's motive? A website trying to entice you to buy legal services is likely to yield less helpful information than a website that a state bar organization suggests that self-represented litigants use. And a political organization that presents itself favoring its position probably won't be the best place to learn about the opposing side. Instead, look for neutral resources. For instance, government websites, usually ending in .gov, rarely have an interest in selling you something, and a nonprofit will often try to educate the public and provide information. These sources tend to be more reliable than others. What can you tell about the author? Consider the reason the author is writing. An academic paper might include many cites to primary sources, for example, but provide little practical information about how things operate in the real world. Can you tell how old it is? Obviously, the older the information, the likely it is to have to change. You want to want to waste time learning about unstable, outdated law. Copyright date can be a good clue, but isn't conclusive when it comes to content accuracy. Do other reputable websites cited? If the website you're using is accurate and reliable, the websites it refers you to are more likely to be as well. After all, the website you're trusting probably go to a trustworthy. After all, the website you trust probably got to be trustworthy by carefully vetting the sites it uses too. Can users change information? While users' input might not necessarily be accurate, there is no promise of accuracy either. You want to be sure you have a primary law citation to verify what you're reading. In this and every case, NOLO, easy to understand material online. As a publisher dedicated to making legal concepts understandable for non-lawyers, NOLO's commitment extends to providing accurate, up-to-date, free legal information across various legal areas, including small business, wills, planning, employment, patent, and copyright, debt and credit, and more. Visit nolo.com. Where to look online? If he's already explained, using the search engine to start your search is quick, practical, and straightforward. But you can also target specific websites with relevant legal information. One of the best practices to start looking at secondary sources online is the Cornell University Law site, WEX, a free legal dictionary and encyclopedia. Provides comprehensive, easy to read summaries in many areas of law. To access this information, go to www.law.cornell.edu/wex. Click the browse in the middle of the page and to produce an alphabetical list of legal terms and topics. Find the area of your research on that alphabetical list. For legal terms, you'll find a definition. For legal topics, you'll find a brief overview and a list of resources. For most topics, the list of resources follows the same pattern. Federal, legislative, and case law material come first, then state legislative and case material. And finally, after you scroll down a little bit to the other sides to that topic, that topic, the list of resources will lead you to the background materials you seek. If you're looking for additional background materials on specific areas of law, we suggest using the list in the appendix at the back of this book and a general outline search. And for general outline searches, which will often lead you to helpful background resources. You want that email. Okay. Self-help books. Today, many publishers provide guides to help non-lawyers understand perplexing legal concepts. The publisher of this book, Nolo, has the longest list of titles ranging from how to file bankruptcy, Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and how to form a nonprofit corporation, both nationwide, to patent, copyright, and trademark. Complete list of Nolo publications is available at his website at www.nolo.com. Nolo. For educational, informational purposes is why I'm reading this out loud. My brain worked different. I need to be able to go back and listen to it over again. The reliability of other self-help books varieties greatly. Online booksellers like Amazon have systems that allow you to see how others have reviewed a book, which can be particularly helpful if you have numerous choices. And many of the questions written above will help you evaluate how useful a source is likely to be. To find these materials, look in a law library or large public library, as many of them carry a complete sets of Nolo books as well as self-help books by other publishers. If you want to buy self-help books, you can look in a bookstore or go online. Some publishers will sell you their books directly on their websites. In other cases, you have to go to a bookseller like Amazon. Some publishers, including West and Fountain Press, also publish books specifically for law students called horn books. While a little more legal than self-help books, these are still intended to help the readers grasp the principles and concepts in a particular area. You can find most of these books at any law bookstore, usually near law schools or law library. Other good background resources are the conscience law summaries intended as a guide for law students. Titles such as Gilbert's Law Summaries, Black Letter Series, Emmanuel's Law Outlines, Legal Lines, and Law in a Nutshell can be found in a legal bookstore and law libraries. All provide an up-to-date framework of overview of legal subject area, making it easier to understand the law you are researching. Legal encyclopedias, in addition to books and resources developed specifically for help researchers, the law students, many legal books are published primarily for attorneys. Most of these books provide a broad overview of a legal topic, which often cite primary sources as a result that they are not only a great resource for learning information about your legal topics, they can serve as a bridge to the next phase of your research, looking at the law itself. The most common of these legal encyclopedias contain detailed discussions of virtually every area of the law. The most helpful are those created for your specific state because that will be the law that will apply in most cases. More generally, encyclopedias usually focus on broad overviews of the law, explaining the general consistencies and differences between states. These encyclopedias are usually multi-volume sets organized alphabetically by subject matter, like regular encyclopedias, but a broader main entries and more sub-entries. Also, they contain thorough indexes so you can find relevant sections by using the keywords you identified in the previous chapter. Legal encyclopedias are often a good place to start your research because they cover the entire range of law in their entries and are broken down into smaller segments. You are very likely to find material relevant to your research problem. Each entry provides a treatment of a particular topic. You'll get a good overview of your issue and the specific statutes and cases, the stuff the law is made of, you'll need for the next research phase. The main drawback of these large, comprehensive legal encyclopedias is that they are more difficult to access. You won't find them in a bookstore or on a free website because they're primarily located in law libraries or large legal databases like Westlaw and LexisNexis. As we explained in Chapter 2, Westlaw and LexisNexis is prohibitively expensive for most. So if you want access to these sources, you probably need to go to the law library. The National Legal Encyclopedias, two encyclopedias, American Jurisprudence, commonly called AmJur, and Corpus Juris Secundum, abbreviated CJS, provide a national overview of American law. The entries are generalized and don't necessarily provide state-specific information. However, they do contain footnoted references to court decisions from many different cases from different states and federal courts where relevant. The table of contents and firearm discussions by AmJur are shown below to give you an idea of how these books are set up. Which legal encyclopedia should you use if your law library has both? Many researchers favor AmJur over CJS because they feel CJS tends to have too much unnecessary information. Although these two encyclopedias used to compare with each other, they are now both published by the same parent company, Thomas Reuters, who now owns Westlaw. The encyclopedias use key number systems to organize tag legal issues they discuss. To learn about key number systems, see Chapter 6. State encyclopedias. In addition to the national encyclopedia, there are at least 15 state-specific encyclopedias. State encyclopedias are organized the same way as the national ones. When researching a question that deals with your particular state, it's almost best to start with a state-specific encyclopedia if one exists. That approach helps you avoid shifting through legal discussions that don't apply to your state laws. Some state specifics: California, Florida, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, strong North Carolinas, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Texas, Menchie's, West Virginia, Virginia. American Law Report. This series of books has two titles: American Law Reports, ALR, and American Law Report Federal, ALRF, because issues primarily arising under state statutes in the cases, as well as the federally oriented and issues those arose before 1969. Pages of footnote index. Was first published ALF. ALR and Fed covers issues that arise primarily under the federal statutes or federal cases. Both publications are multi-volume sets that contain discussions of narrow issues that have been suggested by newly decided court cases. For each discussion, comments on the case itself and then issues of other cases that have been considered the same similarly arise. ALR and ALR Fed are different from the legal encyclopedias described earlier. They don't attempt to cover every subject. This means you might not find what you're looking for. But if you do, you'll be well rewarded. Fortunately, ALR has an excellent index that allows you to find very quickly whether the news is good or bad for you. ALR comes with 6 series, unlike the legal encyclopedias. The newest series died replacing the first ones. 6 might only contain the most entirely new set of topics not covered in ALR 4. The older series are kept up to date with pocket parts. Inserts in the back of each hardcover volume. The hardbound volumes are called Latter Case Services. ALR Federal is still in its 2nd series. Foreign books are beneficial secondary source. Foreign books are pretty much what their name suggests. Collections of legal forms, usually in fill-in-the-blank format. They're handy if you're looking for a form, but also they usually discuss the procedural rules that are relevant to use each form. In other words, when you find a form you need, chances are you'll find an overview of the procedure itself and instructions on making the most common modification. The typical form entry taken from the American Jurisprudence Legal Form 2nd series is shown. We show the form as well as the accompanying material prior about the law governing the procedure. Tip: are you actually looking for forms? If you are, form books are a great source, but also court websites. If you need to document where you're going to file specific court, we suggest you starting with the court website. Many court websites have standard forms. Reliable publishers, NOLO, the forms of amateur legal forms. We're looking for appropriate forms. It is best to start with a publication specific to your state or topic, if there is one. As in the case of state encyclopedias, state form books have been published more in populous states. Resources: more state individual courts have websites that can link to all the forms required to file a claim. You may also obtain federal court forms at www.uscourts.gov/service-forms. Practice manuals. These are practice manuals for torts, contracts, family law, real estate, transaction seizures, and many other issues. Some state specific while others national scope. For example, a publication called Defensive Drunk Driving Costs by Richard tells you everything you know when handling a drunk driving offense. $4,100. Amateur form. Name change. Page 2 of that. Many of these books are well written and well organized. They can give you good understanding of the procedures and substantive law, as well as the hands-on instruction necessary to file and prosecute or defend your case. These resources are generally available in libraries. Continuing legal education publications. Some publishers are dedicated to providing practicing lawyers with continuing education. Two of these continuing educations of bar of the bar and the Rooter Group direct materials towards California lawyers practicing Law Institute, PLI, focus on New York lawyers publishing in some other states with analog resources called CLE, continuing legal education books. Continuing legal education publishers produce detailed practice guidelines, instructions, and forms for many laws and practices, both federal and state. They also publish written material used in continuing education seminars that they sponsor. Education materials are usually available in the law libraries in the states for which they were published. To find these publications, ask the law librarian or go online to the publisher's website to see what's even available. The books will probably look too expensive to buy, but then at least you'll know what you're looking for. Popular publishers below: CEB.com, Reutersgroup.com, PLI.edu.com, WestLegalEdCenter.com, Law Reviews and other periodicals. Because the law continues developing and changing, legal professions are constantly analyzing its evolution. You can find articles about legislation, current legal theories and viewpoints, and important cases in law journals published by law schools, commercial publishers, and professional legal societies such as the bar associations. The articles and journals produced by law schools are written by law students, professors, and even practicing attorneys, and sometimes present a whole new view of an area of the law. They tend to focus on the law and where it's going instead of where it is or where it's been. Although they might provide some history to set a stage for the discussion, even if more articles are more academic than practical, they might still contain valuable descriptions of the state law in which specific areas being discussed can provide you with research leads. On the other hand, journals produced by bar associates and other professionals tend to be more practical, emphasizing on recent developments. Many law reviews and journals are general, covering subjects across the legal spectrum, but increasingly, legal periodicals are starting to specialize in fields such as taxation, environmental law, labor, and entertainment, and computer communications and studies. Because these publications are so often academic or eccentric, in most cases, you remember you try to find a basic summary or another practical period publication. Even if you don't find the answer you're looking for, at least you have a good understanding of the subject, making it easier to digest more challenging law review articles. Finding law review articles in the library. Most law libraries contain the most influential journals and law reviews. Some libraries, especially in large law schools, have complete sets where you can find articles using an electronic index called the legal track, or either two printed devices index to legal periodicals, tan or cover current law indexes. All the law indexes are organized by subject, author, and title, and contain an abbreviation, pre-reference, or journal to which it is located. The printed indexes contain numerous volumes which are organized according to the years in which the contents were published. Legal track, computerized index to legal periodicals, is a part of a larger database called InfoTrack, which contains information on a number of additional resources such as business and general periodicals. Instructions for using legal track are shown on the screen and are very easy to follow. If you get confused, ask the law librarian for help. Incidentally, legal track might be connected to a printer so you can print out the information instead of copying it out longhand. Finding law review articles online. If you're searching from your home or office, then it's probably far preferable to find law review journals online. The American Bar Association allows you to access over 400 law review and journal articles at no cost, including Harvard, Stanford, Loyola, University of Pennsylvania, Journal of Constitutional Law, UCLA, Yale, just to get started. Specialized looseleaf material. Because there's so many different areas of law, most attorneys must specialize in a certain field. Otherwise, they be too much to learn. Several publications cater to this need by offering loose leaf compilations of recent developments in particular fields, weekly or monthly. Loose leaf supplements. These materials provide information about new legislation, regulation, and judicial administrative decisions that might affect the field of law covered by the publication. Unless your research topic falls squarely within one of these specialized categories, you'll probably find these resources too specialized for your purposes. If it does, locate the appropriate service, read the instructions on using it in front of the first volume, and check the index. You might solve your problem almost immediate. All loose leaf services listed here can be found in a good library. Commerce Clearinghouse, bankruptcy, consumer credit guide, employment safety and health, labor law reporter, medical care and Medicaid guide, standard facts terms, unemployment insurance, Bureau of National Affairs, environmental reporter, labor relations reporter, occupational safety and healthy, Social Security law and practice. Like experts in every field, legal experts publish books. When a book typically attempts to cover a entire law, it's called a treatise. Typically, law treatises have titles like Prosser on torts, Powell on real property, and Corbin on contracts. When a book covers just a small portion of the legal field or introduces a new concept into the legal realm, it is called a monograph. Whenever they call hundreds of these books found in stacks of normal library, it might help provide a subject overview. There's a big difference between these resources and textbooks earlier discussed in these chapters. While textbooks might cover an entire legal topic with the intent to reach, treaties and monographs exist to provide in-depth reference materials. Generally, they delve much deeper into an area that you would care to go. They become dated more quickly. Restatements of the law. Legal scholars are always trying to pinpoint exactly what the law is on a particular subject. In some cases, a group of law scholars have convened under the auspices of organizations called American Law Institute, ALI, for the purpose of putting into writing definitive statements of the law in various areas. These statements are termed as restatements, and they have been produced for such topics as contracts, torts, property. While these tomes cover subjects exhaustively, they're usually a little help for the beginning researcher looking for good background stories. First, they are not in narrative form, but rather consist of terms, summarization of legal principles, and long comments explaining them. The language of these comments generally archaic and our various restatements are not well indexed or organized for efficient retrieval of information. But these publications are trying to reconcile them often unreconcilable contradictions in the law. They tend to produce more confusion than enlightenment. They are not a good place for you to start your research. You'll probably find you don't need them once you get going. Bam.